All right, so the question that came in was, what should I do for the first 3 days following a minor muscle injury? And this is where I have to give the caveat that I am not a doctor, I'm not a physical therapist, I'm not going to diagnose what kind of muscle injury you have. But if we put ourselves in the world of imagination, in which we are imagining that the injury that you have is something that is not serious, hence minor muscle injury, then I'm going to give my recommendations on what I would do for myself in that situation, which is first and foremost, boom, kinesio tape. I'm not saying that it's a panacea. I'm not saying that you should do this in every single instance. There are exceptions to it. But what I have learned about it is that it helps with lymphatic drainage. It helps with dealing with swelling. And in the instance of an injury, you're going to have swelling. It's not an anti-inflammatory. It doesn't stop the inflammation process, which in my opinion is a necessary process in order to give the signal to the body that something has to be healed. I think that it helps the body to do what it normally does, only more efficiently and faster. So if I can make the healing process more efficient, I'm going to do that. I like to think of most of my work as being strategically lazy. If there's something that works better, I do it. Number 2, you need to figure out on what level you can move. I like to use a scale of, say, 1 to 4. As far as if you said 1 to 10, 10 being the most pain that you could possibly feel, 1 being next to nothing, you don't want to go above a 4. So if you can find movement, it doesn't matter if it's a stretch or it's an exercise or, exertion-wise, it is super easy and basic. It's the pain that you're feeling. And the reason for it is that we don't want to begin to shut off engagement of that muscle. So if you have too much pain, your body neurologically will start to, I'm not a neurologist, just what I've read, your body will start to disengage those muscles. It will decrease the amount of neurological activation that happens in that area, and you begin to have compensations that take place. That happens for a long enough time, you have a change in your movement pattern. So if we can avoid doing that by having a similar movement pattern at a much lower pace, intensity, or volume, and we keep it within that 1 to 4 range, then it's very unlikely that we're going to have that compensation, therefore a change in movement pattern, and also the blood flow that's going to be happening, the lymphatic drainage that's going to be happening because of muscular contraction in that area. Remember that lymphatic drainage only happens due to muscular contraction. Muscular contraction requires movement. So it's not the only way it happens, but you just need movement. Moving on. All right, so we've got our movement that's going to be happening on 1 to 4. We're going to be having the kinesio tape in that area to help out with lymphatic drainage, and then you should get massage. Now, what is awful about that recommendation is the uneducated individual who hears that is like, you should never do massage on an area that just got injured. Why would? And what they are using as a synonym to massage is deep tissue, and that in and of itself is a perfect example of a lack of education. Because what is one of the first things that the body instinctively does when something's injured? You grab it. Why? Because pressure is soothing to the nervous system. It helps to decrease pain signals. What do you think that is? It's passive massage. It is the placing on of hands. Now, if you can, say, increase blood flow strategically, locally, if you can help with swelling, reducing it, lymphatic drainage, if you can passively take it through a range of motion in order to encourage a return to a full range of motion in a way that is not aggravating, and you can at the same time decrease pain, because one of the beautiful things about massage that people will use against it in a lot of scenarios and then seem to forget about and not use to its credit in the instances where it is important is that it works really well as an analgesic, as a painkiller. And people will say, well, no, you didn't actually make them better, you just made them feel better. They think they're better. It's like, all right, it's an analgesic. Well, then you should use that property strategically in order to help somebody out. So if you have an analgesic experience from massage, then maybe because you're not feeling nearly as much pain, you can do movement better. But since you've already figured out on a scale from 1 to 10 what your 4 and below movement is, you're not increasing the intensity, the volume, or the exercise so that you're doing that exercise, which you know is a 4 or less, but feeling less pain, so you're not in any way mentally inhibited from wanting to do it. I mean, that's a massive deterrence. If you're doing something like, oh my God, this hurts so much, why would you want to do it? Why? Like, the athlete is going to go, you know what, I have to do this. I have to. Like, this is part of the rehab and the rebuilding process. But the average individual isn't going to do it. Why do you think there is such low adherence to therapeutic advice and recommendation? Because most of the time, it's really boring, it's incredibly repetitive, it goes on for too long, and when you do it correctly, continuously, it constantly hurts. Because you are working an area that is injured. So if you can decrease the pain you're feeling in a natural way, aka massage, and you're doing that strategically, and you've already figured out the exercises you're doing, lo and behold, you just might do them more often. And you're going to do them better. I don't see how that's a bad thing. Moving on. All right, we've got tape, we've got our movement, we've got our massage. The last thing that I would say is that you have to look at your program, like immediately. You have to look at your program, because assuming that we're working with an athlete, and you have to understand that for the next 6 weeks, there will be changes. And those changes happen immediately. And they are, in a large